scanners when you play the beat, A brainiac effects.
Now press rewind.
Welcome to Brainsqueezereactions. Myself, Mark Hector. What are we reacting to now? Jordan Peterson. This is new. So this is something different. Let me tell you how this came about. If you don't know, my background is not just reacting like an absolute freaking nutcase to Tupac. It's also in behavioral science and understanding the psychology behind behaviors and the reason why people behave the way that they do. And I've been practicing it for 8 years off a theory from Carl Jung that I deliver in an organization. And I've also done teaching for over 16 years. So my whole background is very different to what I portray. This is my getaway. But every so often I do some lives and I talk about the behaviors of humans and we talk of why we behave that way, and that's been going for a couple of months now, with the next one coming up very soon. I've always got in the comments section like, Jordan Peterson, you should react to. This dude's like a god to me, okay? So yes, I've seen loads of his stuff, so I don't do fake reactions. That's not how it works. I haven't seen all of his stuff, but I'm not about to crouch through and try and find, because they're going to have scenes that I've seen on shorts and stuff like that. I always have him playing in the background. He's a constant science that just keeps playing in my mind. So it was waiting for something to come up. And then this beauty came up, and I was like, yes. The head and the load is like, yes, I'm having this one, okay, to react to. Let's see how this goes. And if they go well, let me know. If you enjoy it, from what I know, I'm nowhere near this gent. Not even close. This dude is godlike, okay? This is like Tupac and insert... I was gonna say game. But then that means I'm game, so that doesn't work. Anyways, okay, look, my background's in this type of thing and it intrigues me. So let's just do the reaction. Let's just jump in, see how this goes. The heading is I'm actually an expert. Jordan Peterson embarrasses a BBC journalist. That's not hard, let's be honest. Fucking worthless. On Adderall. So I'm guessing that's medication if I'm not mistaken. But let's just see how this goes. Comment section is for love. It's not for hate. Haters, go fuck yourself, okay? This is just something different. If this works, we'll go with it. Let's just try it, man. Brainsqueezereactions. We hit 10k. It's now time to freshen things up.
But when you talk, say, about domestic violence, and there's a sort of thesis behind it, and I'm putting it in a bit of a nutshell here, so feel free to rephrase it, that men are, in the end, if men are pushed too far by a too aggressive of feminism, there will be a backlash, and that there is, there's a sort of undercurrent of violence, be it verbal.
Oh, that's a warning, not a that's a warning, not a commentary
warning
on the
that
utility
kind
of that.
Look, the behaviors of this dude, okay? So I'm going to tell you some stuff now. This man's doodling. Now, a lot of creative mindsets will doodle. A lot of people do this. I put colouring in sheets out if I'm ever delivering, and you'd be surprised how many people intricately colour in. But they're multitaskers, so they have the ability to have a creative mindset, so they can colour in, and people assume that they're not listening. They are fully in tune with what's taking place. It's linked in with emotional intelligence as well, but sometimes they just need something to reflect the mind. This man is so smart. He didn't even look up as he answered. The sass of Jordan Peterson as he's fucking doodling and then he's delivering. This dude, I love him. I fucking love him. Him and Bill Burr will be my spirit animal. If I don't grow up to be like this gent and Bill Burr, I failed in life.
And that there is, there's a sort of undercurrent of violence, be it verbal.
Oh, that's a warning, not a that's a warning, not a commentary
it's a warning
on the
that
utility
kind of
of that.
suggests that there may be sort of fault in those who push progressivism too far. They will get a backlash. Some people, of course, see that as a bit of a permissive environment for bad behaviour.
Well, people tend to confuse describing the likelihood of something with supporting the fact that it exists, and I'm describing the likelihood of something, not supporting the fact that it exists. If you push too far on the left, you're going to get a backlash on the right. That's how things work. And this is just a derivation of that as far as I'm concerned.
How does that work in the context of domestic violence?
Oh, I don't think it's applicable in the context of domestic violence at all. I think those things are completely separate issues.
I mean, you were mentioning to me just as we were chatting.
And I was speaking only politically with regards to the backlash. That was a comment on political backlash. It had nothing to do with domestic violence. That's a whole different issue.
But violence often pops up in your work as something you think drives things. That I think you've said in relations between men are regulated by a background threat of force, and in a sense that's why men have difficulty with women. Is it really so?
No, that's why men have difficulty with women who are completely out of control. But
Who should control women?
No. Oh God, I don't like her. Oh my God, I don't like her already. Just okay. So there's is it narcissist behavior? I never understand that terminology, but I think it relates here. So he said about women out of control. So what he's saying is the behaviors for out of control women. That's where the men can find it difficult. In certain occasions, he's not stereotyping in individual circumstance, just talking out loud. And she went with the question, who controls women? And it's such a ploy. BBC, man, you're such a pain in the ass. Just the way you do that to a legend like Jordan Peterson. Ah, man, you just don't do things like that. I hope he pulls her up on that. It would be interesting to see now.
But violence often pops up in your work as something you think drives things. That I think you've said in relations between men are regulated by a background threat of force, and in a sense that's why men have difficulty with women. Is it really?
No,
sense?
that's why men have difficulty with women who are completely out of control. But women
who
have
should
difficulty.
control women?
Well, other women themselves, men, society, just like everyone is controlled. I mean, you're controlled by society, I'm controlled by society, and thank God for that. I mean,
funny. I mean, you described yourself as a liberal earlier, and I think a liberal doesn't think that a society controls women or men.
Well, let's say regulates. I'm a psychologist as well.
But what is an out of control woman? What is this creature show? How do we know when we met one?
Well, I'm sure that you've met women in your life that acted towards you in a bullying and detestable manner.
He's just so smooth, man. If I could just have an ounce of this dude. Just how he answers to people that are asking stupid fucking questions and are trying to steer this negative ship. He answers with this whole thing about, what the fuck are you doing asking me such a dumbass question? It's written all over his demeanor. He doesn't hide it either. It's almost this like, who the fuck are you saying this shit to me? I just love it, man. He says, I'm a psychologist. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And like he's trying to be picked up on individual words. And he's just like, you can just tell. He knows what's taking place. He's done so many of these interviews. And she's trying to revel on the fact she thinks that she can keep backing him into a corner. He is not stressed in the slightest. The mannerisms are so controlled.
But what is this creature? How do we know when we met one?
Well, I'm sure that you've met women in your life that acted towards you in a bullying and detestable manner. It's very difficult for women to cope with that because they don't have any real recourse. Yeah. And female bullying can be unbelievably vicious.
Yes.
And usually that takes the shape of reputation destruction, innuendo, and gossip. It's well documented. It's very difficult to defend.
But
men do it too, but men no. But the patterns,
disproportionately women, in your view, or not? Sorry.
Yes, disproportionately women. That's what the data indicate. I mean, if
but
men
where
are...
is the data on innuendo and gossip?
Well, it's among antisocial behavior among adolescents. It's a well-documented field. So because people look at aggressive and antisocial behavior in women and in men. And in women, it tends to take the expression of innuendo, gossip, and reputation destruction. Yeah. And in men, it tends to take the form of outright physical aggression. There's a whole literature on that.
I mean, fucking hell, come on, who the fuck is this woman? Clearly, that's what happens. That's why when they say with men, predominantly stereotypically, there's an aggression there. It's been built in genetically into the science. That's how it's been. It's only recently that people are starting to be more aware of other emotions. That doesn't change genetics overnight. Just because over the past 10 years you're now starting to understand yourself emotionally. For a majority of the time, that frustration through men is through violence. But with women, there's a deeper emotional hit. What they can do is really go into reputational. When they hit hard. I mean, women fights are fucking crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen them. I mean, I've seen brutal men fights, but if you ever see when women fight, they go out to fucking destroy. The same is with the mindset. Have you ever tried arguing with someone like that when a woman can pull out a fucking 14-page essay about all the stats that they've been keeping a record about you, and you think you was about to win that argument, and then this whole fucking slideshow of events starts turning up that they've been churning for fucking years, and it's almost like, come come at me. And I'm not saying that all women do that, but he's saying there stereotypically the data will suggest that. And you know this. Women know this. Men, we struggle to be in those arguments. We'll have a fight. We'll have a fight about it. We can deal with that a lot of the time, okay? As long as they don't kick us in the fucking nuts. But when it comes to that psychological battle, fucking hell. That's a different kettle of fish. They'll do new things that you were never seeing coming that destroys you, okay? Mentally. That's what he's talking about. And of course that data fucking exists. Who the fuck is this woman, man?
And in men, it tends to take the form of outright physical aggression.
Damn straight.
There's a whole literature on that. It's not a surprise
You
to
don't need
anyone.
literature,
This has
it's
been known
reality.
for 30 years. I mean, the rates of
I think
antisocial...
the idea of the female gossip probably predates 30 years.
Well, it does.
By a long
it does.
time, but that doesn't.
No,
doesn't make it gospel.
But
really,
people
does it?
have no, it doesn't. But people have looked at how women express. Look, women have to express aggression somehow, unless you're willing to say that they're not aggressive. They tend not to do it physically, not to the degree men do.
What's ironic? I just realized she's doing it now. So what she's trying to do is reputational damage. Fucking hell! The irony in this. She's trying to do it now. She's not going for the jugular punches. And a man will get aggressive. You can see Jordan Peterson just amping up things a little bit. The frustration, you can genuinely hear it. Notice what she's doing. She's not even listening to him. She's planning her next attack. And she's sitting there saying that women don't gossip or do reputational damage or reputational damage. And she's questioning that whilst behaving exactly like she's saying doesn't take place. Fucking hell.
People have looked at how women express. Look, women have to express aggression somehow, unless you're willing to say that they're not aggressive.
Yeah.
They tend not to do it physically, not to the degree men do. So they use other channels. And what
Like
other
this?
channels are there other than physical aggression if you're going to be aggressive? Well, you go after people verbally. You go after them with innuendo and gossip and reputation destruction.
That's what she's doing.
And that's how it works.
And just to be clear, that you think that's predominantly a female modus operandi?
Notice what she's doing. So she's trying to now articulate, she's saying that's mainly females. Reputational damage. I want you to say that females are more difficult. He's not saying that. He's saying that men, they go aggression through attacking, and women, it's the psychological, the reputational, and the backhanded gossips. Okay? Don't tell me you're not talking to and I'm talking to ladies now, don't tell me you're not talking to your neighbour, your best mate, your WhatsApp groups. They're vicious. They're fucking violent. I hear discussions coming from like a kitchen when women are fucking bantering on about someone they don't like. And even as dudes, if we're in there playing fucking whatever and you just hear it, you're like, holy shit. Like, that's fucking harsh. You know, we've beaten the crap out of people, but we hear that reputational damage and that gossip, and it's almost like, whew, like, I don't want to be a part of that. Jordan Peterson, man, you're a genius, bruv. You're a genius because he's talking facts. He's not being rude. He's talking facts.
That's how it works.
And just to be clear, that you think that's predominantly a female modus operandi?
Well, you're just proof of it.
It isn't that I think that.
Well, I'm
It's that
asking
the
you.
clinical literature indicates that.
Nice.
It isn't that I think it.
Well, I'm not interviewing the clinical literature. I'm interviewing you. What do you think?
Well, I'm a psychologist and a scientist,
You
and
can
I
cite
tend to base my opinions on what I've read in the broad, relevant clinical literature. I'm not making this stuff up. I studied antisocial behavior for like 15 years. I'm actually quite an expert on it. And so we know that men are more likely to look at it this way. All right. Women are much more likely to try to commit suicide. And men are much more likely to kill themselves. And the reason for that is that men use lethal force and women don't. Now that's a big difference. Okay, so then you say, well, women manifest aggression towards themselves and to others, but they don't use lethal force. They don't use physical force the same way men do. So they have to do it some other way.
Why do
well, what
they
are the
have
other
to
ways?
do something some other way?
Stop pulling him up on the terminology that he's using. He's just expressing that they will have to do it another way. They will have to do things slightly differently. That's all he's saying. Who the fuck are you?
Physical force the same way men do. So they have to do it some other way.
Why do
well, what
they
are the
have
other
to
ways?
do something some other way? That you
Because
can take
people
your
are
Hobbesian
aggressive.
war against, so you're basically a Hobbesian. Life is
No,
a
I'm
war of
half
all
and
against
half.
all.
Half and half. Half Hobbes, half Rousseau. That's why I'm not an ideologue. Because I don't think that people are good or evil. I think they're both. I don't think that culture
true.
is security or tyranny. I think it's both. And I don't think that nature is benevolence or catastrophe. I think it's both. And that's why I'm not an ideologue.
I don't
And I
know
mean,
what
And
dialogue is.
where do you stand on the Me Too campaign? Good thing?
I think that it risks damaging the presumption of innocence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's plenty
Is there
of...
more to it than that?
Oh, sure. Women face the arbitrary admixture of sexual advance and workplace performance all the time. It's a very complicated thing to sort out. We don't know how to sort it out exactly because, NBC, for example, the American TV station, has made it policy that you're not to hug your coworkers, which, may be true. Although I don't think it's the sort of thing that a corporation might be deciding for people. But we don't know exactly what the rules are for governing male and female behavior in the workplace because we've only been working together for about 35 years.
We don't know. After 35 years, wouldn't it be possible to figure something out?
Not when you're talking
No.
about a transformation in behavior that's that profound.
Oh my word! I want to be interviewed by this woman. He's barely even digging into his ability. He is barely. I've seen some discussions from this gent that would blow your fucking mind. This man goes so deep into understanding the trauma that goes behind lived experiences in both men and women, whether it be workplace, whether it be social inadequacies, whether it's in their inability to communicate, everything that you can think about. Everything that you can think about, this man has so much knowledge and data that fits behind it. Whoever he's talking to here is barely dealing with that. They're wasting his time. The questions are childish. They're completely childish. Everything he says is being pulled up on one terminology. Is she a feminist? Because even then she's humiliating the term to be a feminist. She's creating this whole imaginary speech that he hates the women, that he hates females. That's what I'm getting from this, and he's not suggesting that in any way. And she said 30 years, surely we should know better now. What's happened over 30 years? The science has changed dramatically. 30 years ago, you couldn't talk about the fact that you feel as though you're in a different gender. You couldn't talk about diversity as you talk about now. So it's not just 30 years of one plateau change that we can develop on. There's multiple variations of that we're constantly having to cope with. Social media has created a whole new avenue for the introverts and extroverts to now start engaging, the logicals and emotionals to now start debating. That's created platforms we've never seen before. That all feeds into this. It's all like 30 years, things must have changed. A lot's changed. A lot's changed in 30 years.
35 years?
Oh, sorry.
Wouldn't it be
35 years. Even more has changed.
possible to figure something out?
No.
Not when you're talking about a transformation in behavior that's that profound. I mean, we don't know how men and women can work properly together in the workforce. It's very complicated.
But they
Men
do.
don't know how to compete
Millions
with
of
women.
men and women across the world go to work together day in,
well,
day out.
But you were the one who
So-
asked about Me
You're
Too.
the one
Me
who.
Too
Don't
is
start with you're the one who.
Me Too is well,
Did she just say don't start with you're the one who? So she is absolutely manipulative. Clearly got an agenda, okay? Clearly got an agenda. And I'm glad Jordan Peterson is being, used as here embarrassing. She is embarrassing. She just referred to the Me Too and then started talking about shouldn't it be better? If it was better, then the Me Too wouldn't exist. Is what Jordan Peterson is trying to say here. That clearly not much has changed. Clearly the development's moved forward, but not as quickly and progressively as she is stating. Fuck off.
But they
Men
do.
don't know how to compete
Millions
with
of men
women.
and women across the world go to work
but you have
together day
but,
in,
well,
day
you-
out.
But you were the one who
So-
asked about Me
You're
Too.
the one
Me
who.
Too
Don't
is
start with you're the one who.
Me Too is Me
What a
Too is an expression
bitch.
of the fact that men and women are having a hard time regulating their behavior in the workplace. That's the
Oh.
only reason I responded to
Just
because the question
I
was
think
Hello,
posed.
it's
science,
more broadly
bro.
suggesting that some men are having a grave problem with it. What is the lesson of the Harvey Weinstein story for you?
Someone should have said something about Harvey Weinstein much sooner.
But we could start somewhere else. We could start with Harvey Weinstein was wrong to do what he did before we get
Yes,
round
well,
to
yes.
Other people should have spoken out. It's just, that's the secondary order issue.
Fair enough. I thought that went without saying. There are going to be psychopathic predators. They're going to exist. And what has to happen is that people have to stop them because they won't stop themselves. And so I thought that was sort of implicit in the statement. Obviously, he shouldn't have done what he did.
But you don't think that the culture in which he was operating, that there was particularly in his
In
world,
Hollywood?
in his world and in many other worlds, that there was a culture of, this guy's a powerful guy, he's the great silverback gorilla here, let him get on with it.
Oh, I think that culture was everywhere in Hollywood, which is why I think
Not
it's
just in
actually
Hollywood?
quite... Well, Hollywood particularly. I mean, the casting couch idea has been around for a very long period of time. And I think that the Hollywood types who are all upset about this should look to their own devices with regards to the role they've played in fostering the culture that managed that. So
Hang on, it sounds like you're the
Well,
Hollywood itself, or the
you've got to
women,
think-
or who?
No. Oh my word. This woman is embarrassing. She is embarrassing. She's humiliating herself with these questions. You saw her whole demeanor changed. He's saying, obviously it goes without saying, obviously Harvey Weinstein, but then he quickly changed his whole thing and he even admitted fault. And he said, okay, Harvey Weinstein, predatory, that's his natural behavior. But then he went on to say, I thought that was pretty obvious. I didn't realize you needed me to fucking spell that out. But what he's saying is that you're telling me that Harvey Weinstein wasn't working alone. He didn't define that for being women. He's saying anybody that worked with him knew that was taking place. His whole point there is that they should have brought that to life. This woman's unbelievable, man. How is she even breathing is the first question, but how is she a journalist with these types of viewpoints? You're talking to a man, a fucking genius you're talking to. And you're talking to him like that. And you're implying that you're better than him? I'm sorry, but in this science, in this field, whoever this donut is on the left, she needs to pipe the fuck down.
about this should look to their own devices with regards to the role they've played in fostering the culture that managed that.
Absolutely.
So,
Hang on, it sounds like you're the
Well,
Hollywood itself, or the
you've got to
women,
think-
or who?
no,
Who's
no,
best
the
in
entire
this
culture.
section?
He
We thought
didn't
we were
say
talking
women.
about culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's certainly that the Hollywood...
What's the sensible thing for women to do about Me Too, to your mind, and what's the...
Right, what I'm noticing what happens, the minute she's always being beaten, she changes the subject. Every time she's being beaten, she changes the subject. Every single time, okay? Go back and watch this. Every time she has nothing further to say and she wants to turn the screw a little bit, she changes the subject. She is not giving Jordan Peterson the chance to finish what he's doing, to explain in full, and then she changes the journey, changes the dialogue. This is manipulative journalist at its very best. This woman is out of date. She's out of date in mind, in intelligence, and she is fully out of her depth interviewing someone like Jordan Peterson. All she's done is just promote the fact that he is a damn sight more intelligent than many people on this planet, male or female.
Well,
So-
the entire
that's what we said,
culture.
right?
We were talking about culture.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's certainly that the Hollywood...
What's the sensible thing for women to do about Me Too, to your mind, and what's the less sensible thing?
Take a breath, brother.
That's a hard question. It isn't obvious to me exactly what men and women have to do in the workplace to make that kind of sexual predation much less likely, with also subjecting themselves to restrictions on the sexual aspect of their existence that would be unbearable. It's very difficult.
What would be unbearable about
What
that?
would be
How about
unbearable?
everybody wears the same uniform to work?
There we go.
That's what the Maoists... Well, look, if you want to eliminate the differences between men and women sexually at the workplace, you have to constrain the sexual differences. I mean, men wear suits to work.
Well, we
Right.
don't have to eliminate the sexual differences for people to work together with respect.
You have to eliminate them to some degree.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
genuinely
because
puzzled.
the question here is, to what degree should sexually related behavior be impermissible at the workplace? Well, it depends on how you define it. Should you be able to dress attractively? And if you can dress attractively, what do you mean by attractively exactly? Like precisely. I got
Right,
into
so,
trouble.
I mean, I hope I dressed nicely today. You look very well dressed to me, right? You're a man, I'm a woman. We're both nicely dressed. Now we're getting on with the interview. What's the problem or perspective?
Well, the problem is the boundaries of what constitutes nicely dressed.
Yeah.
Because because part of what constitutes attractiveness, part of what constitutes nicely dressed is sexual attractiveness. Because you can't separate out human attractiveness, sexual attractiveness from human attractiveness.
Yep.
And so then the question is exactly where are the boundaries? And that's what the discussion is about. Where
It's natural. Fucking hell. Cave person DNA we're talking about here. We're not talking that this happened yesterday. We're talking that the whole human race, religious beliefs, just for a second, put them just on the shelf for a second. You're talking billions of years of evolution, like fucking bacteria that constantly needs to develop. Again, Bill Burr is a very intelligent dude, man. And he made the same discussion on a comedy thing. And that's why I love the dude. He's more intelligent than people give him credit for sometimes. He's funny, but he's equally very intelligent. And he said, men are built to fuck. That is it. Fuck. Jordan Peterson is politely stating the same thing, okay? You can't be that gender specific now because there's so many variations of that. But what has happened predominantly through life is that men, they're equipped to do that, okay? And women that have, from previous millions of years ago, have been developed to reproduce. There's a certain characteristic, animalistic behavior. That's it. And what men do, they look for the best female that could be reproduced, or females are looking for the best male. So this attractiveness has always been based on that sexual urge to reproduce. What's happened is we've developed that. That's got stronger and stronger, so attraction comes in many forms, including the way that you're dressed. Okay? The way that you look. The different feelings. And that's followed all different routes now. So the genetic coding has been muddled. So now there's all these variations of what sexy looks like. And that's what he's saying. Where do you define that? It's not as simple as A and B. We're not talking fucking millions of years ago. We're talking current date. Fucking hell. Search Pornhub, okay? And look at the categories. There's someone who's got a fucking stripy sock fetish. That's his point. He's saying, at what point do you align that boundary when the need for sexual urges is all over the place? You know, how do you define that? How do you add rules to that? This fucking woman.
And so then the question is exactly where are the boundaries? And that's what the discussion is about. Where are the boundaries?
The dinner parties, which are described in a foreword to your...
See my point? Do you see my point? She has nothing left to say about his genius. Goes straight into dinner parties.
And so then the question is exactly where are the boundaries? And that's what the discussion is about. Where are the boundaries?
The dinner parties, which are described in a foreword to your book, where friends enjoy debates and disagreements.
There's a book out.
Do you think in the broader conversation we've lost that spirit, or in danger of losing that spirit?
Oh, I think we're always in danger of losing that spirit, right? Because lack of freedom is much more probable than freedom. We have to be very careful to maintain that because it's always under threat. But I do feel that it's under threat now. I think that people are very careful about what they say in ways that aren't good. I think the fact that many comedians won't perform on university campuses now is a very good indication of that. That's a canary in the coal mine scenario, that.
Okay. So, well, I enjoyed that. I don't know whether you're going to enjoy that, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the fact that I can listen to this dude. I didn't know he had a book out, so I'm going to be all over that. Listen, you tell me, is this something that I can introduce? I think the dude is a legend. I have high respect for him, and I will always fight his corner. I've learned stuff of him personally, and things that have really got my mind changing, and that's changed the game on certain strategies I've created, on discussions that I've had with individuals, based off his workings and his understanding, and he's so brutal, but that's what I love. I love the brutality of it, and his whole piece there, where he says about it is more difficult to have that opinion and that debate. It is more difficult, but I think there's enough people out there, brain squeeze included, we don't give a fuck, about the stuff. I'm always getting pulled up by people. Just let it go. Fuck that. I'm going to attack them. I have to just do it in the comments section. Jordan Peterson as well. He doesn't take that. Bill Burr, think of your most favourite comedians. They're the less careful ones. I've started to watch a comedian called Dave Chappelle. And you're going to know who he is, obviously. And I started to see him come up a lot more in shorts. I've never watched him as an individual. I remember him in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which I didn't know who he was until I started seeing him as a comedian. And I remember him being that dude in that film and loving him. His name is Sneeze, father of a Chew. You gotta watch the film. It's hilarious, and he's quality in it as well. But there's people like that still push the boundaries of debate, but they do it very cleverly, very intelligently through humor, and they don't care. So people lose that edge of debate, like this lady here. She was losing every question. There wasn't a single moment where anything she stated had any backing or relevance. There wasn't a moment. Every question, pushback, he answered with such clarity that she had to change the subject. So the issue, I don't think, is the debate. The issue is people that are trying to force an unnecessary debate. You get people like that. Two things will happen. Someone will say something slightly out of character, where the simple word that they say will be picked up and pulled apart, and they won't take into account that he's a creative mindset. Foot in mouth disease is a continuous thing, but what he was quick to do was to back that up with either science or a quick recognition of that's wrong, but let me explain where I was trying to go with that. But when people aren't as intelligent as Jordan Peterson, that's where they slip up. They say things without thinking. Or they think too much and don't say anything, and they're stuck in this crimbo limbo moment where they're, damned if you do, damned if you don't, and they don't have the minerals to be able to just go, fuck you. This is it. This is how you do it. So, hey, look, that was interesting. I enjoyed that. Comment section, let me know how you feel about that. I want to do more of those, but I'm gonna let the comment section make the decision on that. Whoo! Do I edit this and throw this out tonight? Fuck it. It's Christmas.